Welcome to City on a Hill Kids Church Online.
I'm Lola.
And I'm Jimmy.
Today we're talking about a lady in the Bible named Deborah.
But that will be after a time of worship.
The people shout, Hosanna, Jesus, Son of God. The people shout, Hosanna, come and save us all. Where's the chariot for this king? Where's the crown of gold? Does this valiant warrior ride a stallion tall and bold? The people shout, Hosanna, Jesus, Son of God. The people shout, Hosanna, come and save us all. Who is this the people praise? A humble man I see, a donkey for his chariot. Surely this can be. The people shout, Hosanna, Jesus, Son of God. The people shout, Hosanna, come and save us all. Passing by, he looks at me with love beyond compare. He gave his life, open paradise, and I will see him there. So I will shout, Hosanna, Jesus, Son of God. I will shout, Hosanna, come and save us all. I will shout, Hosanna, Jesus, Son of God. I will shout, Hosanna, come and save us all. You have come to save us all. You have come to save us all.
Between the time Joshua, the servant of Moses, died and the time of the first king that the children of Israel had, whose name was Saul, the children of Israel did whatever they liked. As a matter of fact, they did what they saw was right in their own eyes. God had asked them to get rid of all the people in the land that he was giving them. And they didn't do that. He told them to do this for a reason. And the reason was that the people in the land did lots of wrong things, and he didn't want the children of Israel copying these wrong things. One of the main things that they were doing wrong is that they were following and serving other gods that was not the God of Israel, who is our God too. Well, as the people behaved the way they wanted to behave, did what they wanted to do, God just left them. And you know, that's something that God does. If you don't do what he's asked you to do, he'll just leave you. And the result of them doing what they felt was okay was that the people of the land and even people from outside will come and do horrible things to the children of Israel. They will do things that you're not supposed to do to other people. They would be treated so unkindly, so wickedly, and then the children of Israel will cry to God to save them. Oh, he will say, please save us from all these people doing such horrible things. to us. And what God would do is that he will raise up a judge. At different times, God raised up 14 judges for the children of Israel. Now, these judges are not the kind of judges that we have today, who are sitting in their black robes, probably wearing a white wig and sitting on wooden benches. No, these judges were ordinary people who had different gifts. Some of them would be warriors, some would settle problems between the children of Israel, and some would be prophets. But these judges would deal with the people who are troubling Israel, and then there'll be peace for some time. All these judges were men, except one. She was a woman. She was a mother, a wife, and a prophetess, and her name was Deborah. She even had a palm tree that she used to sit under, named after her, the palm of Deborah. Now, at this time, the children of Israel were being tormented by a king named Jabin, and he had a leader of his army named Sisera, and they had 900 iron chariots and thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers. Now, chariots are like the tankers that we have today. Who can fight against a tanker? So, in those days, who could fight against a chariot? An iron chariot, for that matter. Meanwhile, the children of Israel, they didn't really have any weapons. They just had maybe hoes and sickles that they used in farming, and there may be some spears. Can you imagine fighting an army with chariots of iron with a hoe or a spade or a spear? Well, that's what it was in those days. So, of course, the children of Israel, they were scared. They weren't able to defend themselves, and lots of wicked and terrible things used to happen to them. Then one day, Deborah called a man named Barak. And she asked him, hasn't God told you to take some men to a certain place and fight Sisera, that he, God, will bring Sisera out so that he could fight him? It seemed as if Barak had been told this some time ago, and he didn't do it. Anyway, Barak told Deborah, well, I'll only go if you go along with me. And Deborah said, okay, I'll go along with you, but you need to know this, that the victory of this war isn't going to be yours. People aren't going to celebrate and sing songs about you winning this victory. That the victory is going to be a woman's. Anyway, so off they went up a mount that God had shown Deborah and Barak. So they were up there with the 10,000 men that God had asked Barak to gather to fight Sisera. Now, Sisera had heard that Barak had gathered his soldiers and they were waiting to fight. So Sisera came out with his 900 chariots and his thousands and thousands and thousands of soldiers. And they were down at the bottom by a river. And Deborah and Barak were watching. Then suddenly Deborah shouted, up! This is the day that the Lord has delivered Sisera into your hands. Hasn't the Lord your God gone before you? And he surely had. Because what happened was that Barak ran down this mount with his soldiers behind him, running behind him, to go and fight Jabin. And there now gathered a storm. So it rained so heavily and the ground was shaking. and the chariot's wheels got stuck in mud. So the soldiers and Barak were able to get all of Sisera's soldiers, but Sisera jumped off his chariot and ran away on foot. So Sisera was on foot. He was running scared. And then he passed the tent of somebody he knew. At least he did know the wife of this person. And she invited him in. And he went in, lay down, covered himself with a blanket, and then asked for some water. And what she did, she gave him milk, lovely milk, which he drank. And she covered him again. But he asked her to stand outside, and that if any man should come, tell that person that there is nobody, that there is no man in the tent. Sisera fell into a deep, deep, deep sleep. And Jael made sure he didn't wake up from that sleep. When Barak passed by her tent, she said to Barak, "Come, let me show you the man you are looking for." Barak went into the tent and found Sisera, the leader of King Jabin's army. So that's how the Israelites conquered King Jabin. There was a great celebration because Deborah and Jael, two women, were the ones who won the victory for Israel. And the land was at peace for 40 years while Deborah was a judge. And that's the end of the story.
Hi everybody, how are you? Wow, don't you just love the story of Deborah? The way she was so wise and godly and would take time listening to God so that she could help other people as she sat under her tree. But then at the right time, God said, now it's time to act. And she went with the army, with Barak, to defeat Sisera and the Canaanites who had been being cruel to the Israelites for so long. And she wasn't afraid because she knew God was with her. So today, as you see, we have two newspaper crafts. We have our tree and our sword to help us remember the story of Deborah. So we'll start with the tree. So you need to get a newspaper and you need to take the staples out of the middle. So you've got lots of loose sheets. Now don't go out and buy a newspaper. There's bound to be somebody in your street who gets one and you can just get one that they're going to throw out. Now, what I have here is a roll of cling film to use to roll up around, or you could use that roll of foil because we keep using foil the last few weeks. And I've got 4 pieces of newspaper that I've stuck together with sellotape. It's so long it goes off the edge of my table and you can't see it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the cling film on here and I'm going to start rolling that up. Now after a while, I've got it well rolled. I'm going to take the cling film out or else it gets a little bit tricky later on. And we'll get this rolled, rolled. Whole thing rolled up into one long tube. There we go. Here we have our tube. And you need quite a lot of sellotape today. So there we are. Stick that up. This is our tree trunk. And now all you have to do is take scissors and cut strips right round the top. These are going to be the leaves. And you want to cut them about halfway down your tube. And this is going to make a palm tree. It says it was a palm tree in the Bible. So this is the right kind of tree. Okay, so here we have the start of our palm tree, and it looks nice, but it's a bit short to sit under, isn't it, unless you're very small. So then what you do is you just start to pull out from the middle, and your tree grows and grows and grows. And the more pieces of newspaper you stick together, the taller it will go. I think that's spraying right off my shot. So this tree is now tall enough for me to sit under, and I can hear God here maybe, and then I can help people, just like Deborah. So that's your tree. The next craft is the sword. Now for this you need several pieces of newspaper. So first of all we're going to make the blade. So take a ruler and starting with the short edge of a piece of newspaper, just like you did for the tree, you're going to wrap the ruler up into a strip. There we are. Get the ruler out if we can. And we're going to stick that, again, more sellotape. Now, the top of the blade, oops, you can see isn't straight. I've cut it into a point. So what you need to do, get some scissors and just cut that point shape. And then you need to, again, put sellotape along. And to help you, if you've cut a curved shape, it's much easier to stick it if you cut little fringes in the sellotape and put each bit down separately. Okay, so here's our sword blade. At the moment it's a bit floppy, so we're going to reinforce it with more newspaper. This time, put your newspaper at the diagonal, so you're starting at a corner, and this time you're wrapping it around a pencil. So you're getting more like a kind of thin straw of newspaper. So once you've got it started, again, you can take the pencil out or else it will vanish inside and you might never see it again. And rolling this up into a long, thin straw of newspaper like this. And this is going to help strengthen our sword blade. Now you can see it's far too long, so we're going to fold it over and that will just add some extra strength. And then what you need to do is slot that inside your sword blade. Now just one I found isn't really enough, so I've got another one that I've already made here. Let's just get this about the right height. And what you might find is that you can only get one bit of newspaper up into the point, but you can get your second one in. There we go. Right, now we've got a nice strong blade, and you can see this is the beginnings of the handle. The next part we're going to make is this cross piece that protects your hand. So, get your ruler again, get another piece of newspaper, so this will be piece of newspaper number 4 for your sword by now, and we'll do the same thing, wrap up the ruler, let the ruler come out, there we go, and then just in the same way that you did with the blade, you want to take your pencil and roll a piece of newspaper from one corner and stick that through, so that will make that stronger. Now, get your sword and position the handle where you want it and fold that over, okay, and then we'll need to slide it along, okay, and we'll just get that positioned just where we want it. I think that's good, and then I'm going to cut off all the extra section that we don't need. And now we've got our handle and we need more sellotape. You need sellotape on all of these different edges and across here to make sure the whole thing stays stuck down. Here we go. I had a lot of sellotape cut ready because I knew that I would need it, and that certainly makes it easier. Good, and now the last bit we need is, you can see our handle here is very floppy. So we've got a couple of bits that we cut off. Do you remember we cut them off because we didn't need them here? So I'm just going to put those on to help strengthen this. Bit more sellotape to hold those together. And then we'll just wrap this round. So this is our last piece of newspaper. You can see we don't need the whole length this time. So I'm just going to cut this. So I've cut a piece of newspaper so it's the same length as the handle I've got. There we go. We'll wrap this round. Oops, it's going to need a bit more tape, isn't it, at the end to get that solid. Okay, I'll stick that up. Oh, I'm not sure I've actually cut myself enough tape. I've got one more piece here. You might need another bit. And finally, I think this handle's actually slightly long. I'm going to fold it up, or you could cut it off. And here we have our sword. So, here we have two fun newspaper crafts, a tree and a sword, so that you can remember the story of Deborah, a leader who was so wise and who heard God, but at the right time, when God told her, she took action. Well, I hope you enjoy these newspaper crafts, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!
Deborah was a mother to both her children and Israel.
She was also a brave leader and prophetess.
Along with Barak, she led the Israelites to go and fight a man named Sisera, who led the army of King Jabin.
Sisera ran away from the fighting and came upon Jael and was welcomed into her tent with lovely milk and a warm blanket.
He fell into a deep sleep, and Jael made sure he didn't wake up. Barak passed by, and Jael told him to come and see the man he was looking for.
The victory of this war was actually Deborah's and Jael's. Two women.
That's it for this week.
Till next time, bye!